All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be breaking down the Sunday night showdown here between the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Aaron Rodgers versus Jordan Love matchup. Let's go ahead and get into it. So as always, I like to set the tone here with kind of a game preview. Looking at the game total, 45.5 total points. So kind of an average game in terms of the point total. I probably would agree with that. And the Packers are going to be about 3-point favorites in this. I would also agree with that. Now, from a betting standpoint, let's see if we're getting any good bets for you guys to go ahead and target. So we'll just click on this game here and just see. Any plus EV bets is what we're looking at. So one plus EV bet, that'd be on the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5 on ESPN Bet. So plus 105 there, guys. So if you guys like that bet, that's not a terrible idea to get to that one. All other bets that we're getting here that are close in consideration. Nothing too much, really. So yeah, ESPN Bet plus 105 if you guys like that for the Steelers to cover. If you basically think that Aaron Rodgers is going to come out firing and have a good game, that'd be the bet that you want to go with. Now, I do want to start this video out with talking about some of the injuries that the Packers currently have going on right now. So one of the interesting kind of aspects about tonight is how much Josh Jacobs will end up playing. Last week he was coming into the game injured. He ended up being like a questionable mark, a very true game time decision. Now, like production wise, it didn't change too much. He did get a little bit less carries because he got some less snaps, but he was still fine rushing wise and then also TD wise as well. But we did see his snaps were down in a game where you would have expected him to get going. This brings up a very good call out for some of the prop bets that we're getting for him, because I think they're all a little bit too low due to the idea that he could end up being limited in this game as well. And we truly don't know whether or not he will be. I would expect he gets back to his like 65% of the snaps, so about 10% more than he got last week. And if that ends up being true, I do like the bets that we're getting for him. So let's take a peek at them, guys. So we have him at 2.5 receptions, a bet that he has been able to really crush over the past several games, minus last week. So that's a bet that I don't mind. The rush attempts one is the one that sticks out to me. So if they are 3-point favorites in this game, I should like him to get over 15.5 rush attempts. They're at 16. If you think the Packers are going to win this game and be playing with the lead, then yes, this is a bet that you would end up liking a decent amount. And so, yes, really all the bets that we're getting for him, to me, all seem to be a little bit too low if he is going to be good to go. Now, that is a guessing game. It is a one-game slate. I don't mind taking a stand on a bet like that. That could end up being a very good edge for us if he ends up, again, playing his normal snap share. And we also have to talk about the Green Bay Packers injuries as well at the receiver position. So Dontavian Wicks is going to be out in this game. We already know that, but they are going to get back Christian Watson. I have not seen any indication of how many snaps he'll end up playing. I do think he's going to end up splitting snaps with like Malik Heath and himself. That's basically it. But I'd probably put the expectation at about 50% of the snaps to about, let's say 25% of the snaps. He is not someone I really want to be betting on. Although I do think him being back in the offense will be good for the offense as a whole. The offense as a whole, and this data is a little bit old at this point, but the last I looked at it, averaged about 4.5 more points scored with Christian Watson on the field throughout his career. Like, he is a very significant asset for this offense for Matt LaFleur. Okay, people might not understand that, but the offense just clicks a little bit more. And I think it's because of his top end speed that people have to account for. Now, I actually think Matthew Golden's going to be someone we could look at in this game, guys. He ended up with 3 receptions basically in the first drive and then 1 reception after that. He is due for a big game. You look at all the like separation stats and whatnot, he's like the best rookie in that regard. It's just one of those things where the Packers offense does tend to spread it out a lot. Jordan Love does trust Romeo Doubs. And then you also have Tucker Kraft, who's just been a stud. You're going to get Tucker Kraft the football. The interesting thing here is all the pass catchers get very good spots in this game. And the issue that we have with the Packers is that they do tend to spread out the football. Okay, so it is tough to like for sure tell you guys this is where we need to get to. It does end up being a spot where I probably like betting like 3 out of the 4 players I'm going to mention here for their overs, knowing one of them might not get there. And so let's go ahead and break that down further. So a very interesting one to me for the bets that we were getting is actually Tucker Kraft for over 4.5 receptions. I know, again, the Packers will spread out the football. We understand that. But at the same time, Tucker Kraft is someone that basically, I know it's been Romeo Doubs, but really their top pass catcher has been Tucker Kraft for the most part. Now, I will say, like, Josh Jacobs probably getting some work in the passing game this week as opposed to last week. Might throw a wrinkle into this. But overall, this seems to be very low to me. And if we look at it, guys, the Steelers are going up an average of 6 receptions per game to opposing tight ends. So 4.5, not terrible. A lot of people are betting on his over anytime touchdown here, which I don't hate. The Steelers have given up 4 touchdowns thus far this season to opposing tight ends. But really, if we're doing that, I probably would just bet on his over fantasy score. That being said, probably his best bet in regards to the Steelers' weakness would probably be with his over receiving yards here. On average, guys, the Steelers give up 67 receiving yards to opposing tight ends, so it does go hand in hand with the receptions over. Either way, one of those are going to end up being pretty good spots for us. And maybe you guys are seeing, all right, he's at 4.5 for the under, slightly favored on PrizePicks here, guys, and for his receptions. And then you see his receiving yards 51.5 here on PrizePicks, and you see slightly favored the over, and you want to go with that. It makes sense to me. So I do think he has a good chance to have a good game, although the lines are tight. Obviously, they're going to be tight for a one-game slate. I also don't mind Romeo Doubs to get over 4.5 receptions as well. Again, not necessarily the best bet in regards to how Vegas is seeing this game going. But I do think that he has a good chance. Again, this is how you attack the defense here. And so I like the over 4.5 receptions. The issue here that we're already seeing with the Packers is if we're attacking some of these under bets on, these bets where Vegas thinks the under is going to hit, don't necessarily love that. And part of the issue I should call out is the Packers tend to be a time of possession type of team, and so do the Steelers. And so that could limit just the amount of plays that are run in this game. But it is worth calling out, guys. Over the last 3 games, Doubs has been very productive. Those have basically all been pretty darn solid matchups as well. That's part of it. And this is going to be another solid matchup for him. And so I do expect him to be able to get over 4.5 receptions. Now, personally, my favorite bet is actually Matthew Golden to get over 3.5 receptions here. It's a demon bet. The concern would be that he actually ends up being limited with the injury that he has, or maybe Christian Watson actually is just fully good to go and ends up playing more snaps than Matthew Golden. I don't necessarily expect that. And again, this is how you attack the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And so I like this bet a decent amount. I'm willing to take the risk here that he ends up getting 5 targets. That's kind of what I'm projecting him to get. And if he ends up getting that, he should be able to get 4 catches. Okay, that's basically the bet there. And I'm a little bit surprised that PrizePicks has it as a demon bet, plus money bet there, because the under's like 55% likelihood for it to hit. I'm like, typically they've just put that as a standard bet there, guys. So this ends up being a pretty solid bet for us overall. I like it. If you look at the opposite, like 2.5 receptions, the over would be about 53% likelihood for that to hit. Again, just takes one more reception. That is the weakness here of the Steelers defense. All right, and I do want to call it this big prop line difference here that we were getting for Jordan Love fantasy score-wise. It's pretty significant to me, guys. So 1.5 fantasy score prop line difference. The PrizePicks and Underdog scoring is the same for quarterbacks. And so it really just depends on Josh Jacobs. Is Josh Jacobs going to score 2 rushing touchdowns, or is Jordan Love going to throw for 2 passing touchdowns? That's basically the bet here. But I do like the over a decent amount here on PrizePicks. I think he ends up having a good shot at having a great game here, just because, again, that is the weakness of the Steelers defense, is in the passing game. You throw the football against the Steelers. So I don't mind that. I could see betting this as a middle, though. Like, at the same time, like, that's a pretty significant prop line difference. Even if he throws 2 passing touchdowns, that still ends up being like at 50 yards or so for a passing yard difference. Like that can be pretty darn significant there. So I think I will be running out the under as well on Underdog. And then I do like the over on PrizePicks. The issue with that bet specifically is that if you're using Jordan Love for over his fantasy score, that would then reduce the payout. If you're getting to Tucker Kraft, Romeo Doubs, or Matthew Golden for their overs, then it's going to reduce the payout a decent amount there on PrizePicks. And just as an FYI, I think part of the reason as to why we are seeing that is like they are valuing the passing yards just differently there as well. So that's probably it. Let's go on and get into the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. I don't necessarily love any of the bets that we were getting here, although I do think Darnell Washington for under his fantasy score, it is a fascinating bet just because it does make sense. The issue here is last week, guys, we knew that the Arthur Smith offense would be running out a lot of 2 tight end personnel sets. Last week, they ended up running out 3. Okay, all the tight ends for the Pittsburgh Steelers end up getting 60% or more of the snaps. The issue is Darnell Washington only got a 38% route share. He did get 5 targets in that game, 3 receptions for 2 yards and a touchdown. He's really just not a big play type of tight end. And so the interesting bet we could go with here is bet him under fantasy score, and then if you want to bet him to score an anytime touchdown, you could as well. That's basically it. Assuming he doesn't score a touchdown, then we're good to go. Guys, the tight ends for the Steelers scored 4 touchdowns last game. That's pretty crazy. And then Jalen Warren, this is a more difficult matchup for Jalen Warren, one of the most difficult matchups in the league. The Packers do not give up rush yards to opposing running backs. The issue that I have with Jaylen Warren is he's probably going to get involved in the receiving game. End up with 5 targets last week, guys, 44% route share. I had a 65% snap share. That shouldn't be the same, but I do kind of agree that those 2 bets are going to be decent bets. And just worth calling out, guys, the Packers are expected to get Devontae Wyatt back. They're starting defensive lineman. That would actually be a big boost for the offense as a whole. That would alleviate some Micah Parsons double teams as well, most likely. And then from there, guys, Pat Freiermuth for under his fantasy score. Not a bet that I like as much. He actually ended up having a 76% route share, ended up getting 6 targets last week. So not exactly a bet I want to target. And I actually want to be favoring the overs more for the Pittsburgh Steelers rather than the unders. Okay, so I want to take a deeper dive at like Jonnu Smith and then Pat Freiermuth to start. And so what's interesting here about Pat Freiermuth is if he plays in the same role that he did last week, which is a big if, okay, I do want to make that clear because that was something new. He was actually someone that's been outsnapped by Jonnu Smith and Darnell Washington a decent amount. But like this is how you attack the Packers is via the tight end position. And so I actually don't mind the idea of getting to his over receiving yards, but like he is someone where it makes sense to take a risk on him to like do over 3.5 receptions or to, do an increase of his receiving yards, maybe go 29 receiving yards. Because it's just a bet on his playing time. If he ends up playing the same snap share as he did last week, which is about 70% of the snaps, then he's gonna get targets. He's gonna get 5 or so targets. And so I like the idea of doing that, doing the boosted payout there for you guys. And then Jonnu Smith as well, it kind of falls into that same category. I do think it's worth calling out, like he should be able to get over 3.5 receptions again in this matchup against the Packers. It is concerning that he hasn't been able to do that though over the last several games, especially last week where it was a good matchup, but he ended up getting 6 targets in that game. So I think that is worth calling out, guys. Like 6 targets is a bunch. If he gets that again, like it's hard to imagine him not getting over 3.5 receptions. Now, Jonnu Smith for over 7 for a fantasy score or 7.5 for a fantasy score is also a little bit interesting. Just when we look at it, 30.5 receiving yards, 3.5 receptions. It's off by 1, so not really factoring in a touchdown at all. So if you guys like the bet for Jonnu Smith to score a touchdown, you might as well just do his over fantasy score. He's another one though, like we kind of know his role. Going to play about 70% of the snaps, going to get about a 79% route share, which is what he got last week. I like him more than Pat Freiermuth, just to be clear. And so like his standard lines are more appealing than Pat Freiermuth, although it does feel like we're forcing it. And I do want to call it Calvin Austin's going to be back in this game. Probably my favorite bet, if you think the Packers are going to win this game, would be Calvin Austin to over 2.5 receptions. So even last week, guys, Romaine Wilson ended up playing to 58% of the snaps, had a 56% route share. Those snaps should all go to Calvin Austin. Although with Calvin Austin being active in this game, I kind of expect Calvin Austin to get more work. Okay, Calvin Austin had 80% route share in week 1, or snap share, sorry, in week 2, 93%, and then 72%. The reason why we've been seeing a lot of 2 tight end sets and 3 tight end sets has been because he has been out. So we see thus far this season, guys, he's gotten 2.5, 1, 3, he got 4, 1, 3, and 2. Okay, over the last over several games, he hasn't played in a month. That's concerning. Maybe his snaps are limited. I doubt it. And if they're not, that's probably my favorite bet for the Steelers because we know Aaron Rodgers does like to get the ball out quickly. And so if the snaps are right there back for Calvin Austin, let's just say 70% of the snaps, that ends up being an appealing prop bet. And I will say DK Metcalf at 4 receptions, probably going to be a push. I don't hate it. His over 56.5 receiving yards is also an interesting bet. The biggest question mark that we have with the Steelers is really the Packers defensive line. Are they going to be able to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers? Okay. Because if they're not, we have seen the DBs struggle. And it really just depends on whether or not like the defensive holds are going to get called. Micah Parsons has been held several times, key plays in certain games, and you would kind of expect them to call it, but at the same time, they haven't been. And so that's really the difference maker there. I don't mind DK Metcalf for over his receiving yards. It seems like he should be having bigger games than he's had. But overall, I like Calvin Austin the most in terms of the overs there. And let's talk about Aaron Rodgers as well. So I do think I like Aaron Rodgers to get over 1.5 passing touchdowns. If we're searching for an over prop bet for him, this would be the bet that I want to get to. It is a decent game total again, 45.5 total points or 44.5 total points. Decent enough. Jaylen Warren does draw a more difficult matchup, so I do think the strategy is, throw the football a little bit more. So Rodgers to get 1.5 passing touchdowns, not a terrible one. And we can read into the revenge game narrative a little bit. He's going to be, I would say, motivated to play well. He said it himself. He doesn't really view this as a revenge game, though. Fantasy Sorry, fantasy score wise, I don't think we necessarily need to get to any of these. If we're searching for an overbet, it would just be the passing touchdowns. And then it probably goes to one of the tight ends. Good luck figuring out which one that's going to be, though. So guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the bet of the day, but I do want to call it the 9to5 membership. If you guys would like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. You guys can get access to all the fantasy golf tools, all the NFL tools, as well as the basketball tools and just general prop tools, plus a little bit more there as well. It's going to be all available for you guys for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. But let's jump into the 9to5 bet of the day. So again, guys, with Jordan Love, I do think it's kind of two-sided. You could end up betting his over fantasy score on PrizePicks. If that's the route you want to go there, by all means do that. The prop line difference that we're getting with him should not be there. That's pretty darn crazy. I do like Josh Jacobs. I wanted to bet him over 15.5 rush attempts as like a slightly decreased payout here on Underdog. They're not giving us that bet. I do think that ends up being the best bet. 16.5 did seem a little bit too rich for me, so I ended up going with his over receiving yards. Again, if he is fully healthy and is going to play his normal snap share, he should be able to get over 2.5 receptions, and he should be able to get over 16.5 receiving yards. I went with Jonnu Smith here for over 3.5 receptions. It is a guessing game as to kind of which Steelers receiver we want to get to. For Underdog, though, they are decreasing the payout for like Calvin Austin over 2.5 receptions, and then they have DK Metcalf over 3.5 receptions as a decreased payout as well. I'd rather just go with the standard bet here. And then on PrizePicks, guys, a 4-slip bet, but really if you guys just wanted to do two bets, I would say Calvin Austin over 2.5 receptions and then Matthew Golden over 3.5 receptions. Again, this should not be a demon bet on PrizePicks. And then I do just want to call it Tucker Kraft and Romeo Doubs. They should be able to have good games in this game. The Steelers defense, you just throw the football against them, okay? Tucker Kraft has basically been their number one receiver. Romeo Doubs is their number one receiver. So Tucker Kraft, top pass catcher, I guess I should say. Both of them should get 6 targets in this game, and that's basically the bet there as well. I expect Matthew Golden to get 5 targets. The only wrinkle that could get us is whether is like Christian Watson playing 70% of the snaps unexpectedly and being a big focal part of this offense. We'll see. Maybe that ends up happening, but that's going to do it for this video, guys. I appreciate you being here. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. Again, if you guys would like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to all those tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.